Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
And I'm Jacob.
And today we're going to continue with our literature unit for the month of December. And we're talking about a Sherlock Holmes story entitled The Adventure of the Blue Carbuncle. And again, it's a Sherlock Holmes Christmas mystery. This particular story takes place during Christmas time, which is appropriate because Christmas is coming soon.
That's right. Merry Christmas to everyone again. Tom, what are your Christmas plans?
Probably just going to hang out here because the pandemic kind of keeps everybody in one place. Maybe, I don't know, if we got some time, maybe we'll head down to Hualien or Tainan or someplace like that. How about yourself?
That's nice. Well, probably we'll celebrate it with the kids, put up a Christmas tree. Maybe Santa will come and deliver presents for the boys. So yeah, it'll be nice.
Sounds like fun indeed. Yes, Christmas is usually time to spend with family at home. And that's what Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson did at the end of our lesson last time. They had solved the crime and they were going to enjoy their Christmas dinner together. Now, today, of course, we're going to talk about the story and some of the themes and ideas in this story. And as a result, you might actually be interested in reading the story yourself, even though we should have given you a spoiler alert at the beginning because we basically told you already how the story ends. That's not what you want to do when you tell someone about a detective story. You don't want to spoil the ending.
Right. Well, you know the ending, so yeah, you can explore this story on your own. But now, why don't we listen to the contents of today's lesson? Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's The Adventure of the Blue Carbuncle is one of the 56 short stories he wrote about his most enduring literary creations, Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. It contains all the features of a classic Holmes adventure. These include a scene where Holmes uses observation and deduction. In this case, by using Mr. Baker's hat to draw conclusions about Mr. Baker himself. It's also one of the more light-hearted tales, as no one is viciously murdered or even seriously inconvenienced by the crime. Nevertheless, the story not only contains one key theme, but also illustrates an interesting aspect of the great detective's character. The theme of goodwill is at the core of the story. Doyle makes this clear by setting it during the Christmas season, which is seen as a time to forgive others and show compassion and tolerance toward everyone around us. Holmes displays these qualities by allowing Ryder to escape justice, as well as by ensuring Horner is freed from jail in time to spend Christmas with his family. The fact that Holmes spares Ryder also speaks to his motivations for becoming a detective. He is fascinated by crime and the unraveling of mysteries, but that fascination often vanishes once he reaches a solution. Throughout his career, he allows several people who have committed criminal acts, even murders, to get away. Sometimes, this is because he believes the crime was morally justified. But in The Adventure of the Blue Carbuncle, Holmes believes he is, as he says, saving a soul. He adds, the solution is its own reward, which is one of the main reasons for doing what he does.
Okay, everybody, let's get to it. Let's summarize today's lesson. We're actually talking about the story itself, and we're summarizing it, and we're talking about some themes and ideas in this story. And maybe, again, after our discussion, you might be inspired to read this story yourself. So, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's The Adventure of the Blue Carbuncle is one of the 56 short stories he wrote about his most enduring literary creations, Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. So this sentence here gives us a lot of information. First of all, it tells us the name of the author, Arthur Conan Doyle. He was knighted by the Queen for service to Great Britain. So, of course, he's now got the title Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and he's the writer of the story. And this is one of the many stories he wrote about Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. So, of course, this is one story of 56. And we're describing these literary creations as being enduring, which means they've lasted for a long time. And again, the creations are these two characters, Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. And literary means anything having to do with literature, writing, novels, or poems, and things like that.
Right. So Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson are these very, very famous, well-known, popular fictional characters from Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's stories about Sherlock Holmes. And the story contains all the features of a classic Holmes adventure. Okay, if you've written 56 of these, you might have a formula, right? You kind of know how to write these stories. Okay, so Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wrote 56 of these, and he knows how to write them, and the story contains all the features of a classic Holmes adventure. Okay, so the features of a story. So we have the characters, we have the plot, okay, we have the mystery. Then we have the act of solving the mystery, solving the crimes. These are all features that you might find in a classic Holmes adventure. These include a scene where Holmes uses observation and deduction. Okay, so one of the features of a Holmes mystery, a Holmes story, will be Sherlock Holmes kind of sitting down, looking at a situation or looking at an object, a clue perhaps, and using observation. When you observe something, look at something, you observe something, this is observation. It's the statement about something you have noticed. Okay, so I make an observation about something. This sky is very cloudy today. I think it might rain. Okay, so my observation is about the weather. The sky is cloudy. Maybe it will rain. So an observation is something you notice by watching or listening to something.
Right. Sometimes, of course, if you have a medical emergency, you might go to the hospital and they cure you, they fix you up okay, but they decide to keep you overnight for observation. They want to make 100% sure that you're actually okay, so they keep you overnight for observation in case something else happens. But in this particular case, it's talking about investigation and looking at things, observing things, looking at them carefully, looking for clues and stuff like that. So, of course, there is a scene where Holmes uses observation and he also uses deduction. We did talk about the verb deduce in our last program. To deduce means you've got lots of information and then you make some conclusions about that. I gave you an example of a person I know, and based on the clothes she was wearing, I deduced that she was a heavy metal fan. And of course, here the noun is deduction, which describes that process. Using deduction, we can solve mysteries.
Okay, so he uses observation and deduction in this case by using Mr. Baker's hat to draw conclusions about Mr. Baker himself. So he looks at the gentleman's hat. Holmes looks at Mr. Baker's hat, and he can kind of figure out or kind of make some conclusions or some deductions about Mr. Baker just based on the hat. And why is Holmes able to do this? Well, he's been a detective for a very long time, so he can draw upon his professional knowledge, cases that he's solved before, and usually, a lot of the time, he'll be correct by making these deductions because he's seen it all before.
Right, so again, he observed the hat, he made deductions, and he could draw conclusions about Mr. Baker based on Mr. Baker's hat. And again, it's also one of the more light-hearted tales, as no one is viciously murdered or even seriously inconvenienced by the crime. So yes, it's light-hearted, which means there isn't a lot of violence or pain and suffering and stuff like that. Indeed, it's all just about a simple theft of a jewel or something like that. It's a pretty innocent little crime, although if you get caught doing that, you could go to jail for many years. But again, it's a light-hearted tale because no one is viciously murdered. You could be murdered or killed by somebody, but viciously here means brutally, maybe with a knife, or you were beaten to death with a baseball bat. You see lots of vicious murders in gangster films, for example, when they really beat them to death.
Right. Not pretty. Not pretty at all. So no one is viciously murdered. Maybe no one is really, there are not too many fights or anything like that. It's not very violent. Remember, it was described in the beginning as a trivial matter, something minor, something not very important. Okay? And again, no one was even seriously inconvenienced by the crime. the noble, well, he lost his jewel. He lost the blue carbuncle. But we can assume that when Holmes finds it, it will be returned to him. So, yeah, it was kind of a minor inconvenience, but it wasn't a serious inconvenience. If you're inconvenienced by something, it means that it causes you trouble. Say in the morning you have to go to school and you walk out and your bike, maybe the tire is flat. And that means you can't ride your bike to school. Well, this would be an inconvenience to you because now you will have to find a different way to get to school.
And this is a verb phrase here, to be inconvenienced by something. So in my neighborhood a couple of years ago, someone was building a new house. So we were inconvenienced by that construction. It was noisy during the daytime because they were using jackhammers and stuff like that. And it was difficult to get home and things like that. So we were inconvenienced by that construction. And in this particular case, no one was seriously inconvenienced by the crime. Yeah, someone just stole the jewel and they had a goose there, but, nobody was hurt. They didn't have to go to the hospital or anything like that. So, yes, indeed, it was just a noble who lost their jewel. They probably got hundreds of other jewels. Yeah, sure, they'd like to have it back, but still their life wasn't really changed in any big way, so they were not inconvenienced by the crime. And in the next sentence here, it says, nevertheless, still, the story not only contains one key theme, but also illustrates an interesting aspect of the great detective's character. So again, it doesn't only contain one theme, but it also shows us an aspect of Sherlock Holmes's character. So yes, indeed, those are some of the aspects of the story that we'll talk about in the next part of our lesson. But right now, we're going to take a break and listen to our Chinese teacher.
大家好，我是派老师。今天讲解的是12月份 Unit4 蓝宝石切案第3天的课程。按照往例，在2天的故事结束之后，我们会一起分析故事内容，探索故事的主题和寓意。现在，请大家一起看看学习重点。好，我们看到第一段第一个句子，就是Sir Arthur Conan Doyle 亚瑟柯南道尔爵士这个句子。同学请先注意哦，这位爵士其实是名侦探福尔摩斯的创作者。如果喜欢推理小说，这个常识哦，请大家一定要记得。好，老师要看的是这个句子里面 enduring 这个单字 ，enduring 这里做形容词用，英文解释是 lasting over a period of time。老师给大家一些词语搭配的例子，这个单字非常的实用，比方说。Enduring friendship 长久的友谊 Enduring friendship 或者 Enduring memories 就是有一些记忆我们会在脑海当中存留很久。那又或者说我们老师给大家一个例句哦，比方说 Our childhood experience has an enduring impact on the rest of our life. Our childhood experience has an enduring impact on the rest of our life.我们童年的经验对我们往后的人生会有长久的影响。好，请同学看到第二句，就是 it contains 这一句是什么意思呢？就是这个故事里面呢，其实有福尔摩斯冒险的经典的一些特征。这些接下来呢，请同学看到第三个句子。These include a scene.Where Holmes uses observation and deduction. 那到底这些福尔摩斯经典的这些特色是什么呢？其中呢，就是在一个场景里面，福尔摩斯他会运用自己的观察力，还有推理能力 observation, deduction 观察力，还有他的推理能力。再来，请同学看到第4句，这里有一个 light-hearted tales， 请同学特别注意到 light-hearted 就是比较轻松的。很多福尔摩斯的这些著作啊、文学啊，其实都会有一些人被杀害、被谋害，那感觉上就会比较沉重。不过这个故事是属于步调比较轻松的，好 ，light-hearted tales。好，接下来我们看到第5句，所以呢，这整个故事，整个蓝宝石切案的故事里面，当然有一个很主要的讯息，就是宽恕的精神。那这当中呢， 也有很有趣的部分，让我们更了解这个侦探他的个性。
We're going to take a short break now, but please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, everyone. We're continuing our look at the adventure of the Blue Carbuncle. This is our third day of talking about this story by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. It's a Sherlock Holmes Christmas mystery. And in the last paragraph there, it's kind of a tease about what we're going to talk about for the rest of today's lesson. The story not only contains one key theme, so we're going to figure out what that theme is, but also illustrates an interesting aspect of the great detective's character. We're also going to learn a little bit more about Sherlock Holmes and his character.
Okay, remember this story takes place around Christmas time, so everyone's filled with a festive, joyous mood, and there are feelings of goodwill going on. So yeah, focus on that word goodwill because that's an important theme of this story. The theme of goodwill is at the core of the story. So the core is the main part of the story or the main point that the story is trying to make. Yes, goodwill is important here, and that makes sense because at the end of the story, remember, Sherlock Holmes persuaded the police not to press charges against Mr. Ryder because Mr. Ryder had not really committed crimes in the past, and it's Christmas time, and yeah, just let it go this time. He'll probably be a good boy from now on.
That's right. Okay, Doyle makes this clear by setting it during the Christmas season. As we said, Christmas is a time of forgiveness, a time of being in good spirits, goodwill towards your fellow man, other people, things like that, which is seen as a time to forgive others and show compassion and tolerance toward everyone around us. Okay, compassion here. We have a vocabulary word. Compassion is a feeling of wanting to help somebody, especially someone who is sick, someone who is hungry, someone who might be in trouble. We want to show compassion towards people who might be less fortunate than us. A lot of times in Taiwan, you have people who might not be able to find a job because of a disability or something, and they might be selling something maybe on the street. So they'll come up to you and they'll ask, can you buy my pens, or can you buy my tissues, or something like that. And it's kind of good to kind of look inside yourself and say, yes, this person might not be as fortunate as I am. Maybe I can show a little compassion towards them by buying their tissues or buying their pens.
Every once in a while, I give a little bit of money to some of the homeless people hanging out down by the Taipei train station. I try to show a little compassion there so they can get something to eat or something like that. And in this particular case, it's Christmas time, so it's a good time to forgive other people and show compassion, and also to show tolerance toward everyone around us. And here, tolerance is different from compassion. Compassion is kind of sympathy or trying to feel like those people, but tolerance here means you put up with people. Normally, maybe homeless people bother you a lot. I'm sure if you're in Seattle or cities like that in the United States, you just get sick and tired of seeing all those homeless people all the time, and you just want to tell them to go away. You guys smell bad. Leave us alone. But maybe during Christmas time, you show some tolerance. You actually maybe stop and talk with them and buy them a meal or something like that. So yes, indeed, tolerance means you basically don't let other people bother you so much.
Right, you put up with them maybe. It's good to have tolerance towards people who might be different from you, right? They have different beliefs or different ways of life, but we're all on this planet together. We all have to coexist. We have to live together. So it's important to show tolerance toward everyone. Holmes displays these qualities by allowing Ryder to escape justice, as well as by ensuring Horner is freed from jail in time to spend Christmas with his family. Okay, so Ryder escapes justice. That means he doesn't go to jail even though he committed a crime. He doesn't have to go face a judge or a jury or anything like that. He doesn't have to face justice after committing this crime, so we can say that he escapes justice. And Holmes as well, he ensures Horner is freed from jail. If you ensure something, you kind of make sure of it. You can actually see the word sure, the S-U-R-E in here. We take off the E when we add ing for the gerund form, but the verb to ensure, E-N-S-U-R-E, is of course to make sure of something.
Now, in the next paragraph here, it says, the fact that Holmes spares Ryder also speaks to his motivations for becoming a detective. So in this sentence, we have the verb to spare, which is a verb, and that means you just, you show mercy to somebody, you decide not to punish them, even though you have the power to do so.
Right, so you might spare a spider. A spider could be climbing up the wall of your living room, and instead of just, hitting it with a slipper or something like that, you might cover it with a cup and take it outside. You spare the spider's life rather than kill it.
I don't like to kill spiders. I like spiders.
Yeah, I mean, I do too. I try and tell my kids, hey, it's bad luck in some cultures to kill a spider. They don't believe me. They don't like spiders, but I still want them to spare the spider if they can. So the fact that Holmes spares Ryder, it speaks to his motivations for becoming a detective. So maybe we can see why Holmes, this character of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, wants to become a detective. He is fascinated by crime and the unraveling of mysteries. But that fascination often vanishes once he reaches a solution. Okay, so a good detective has to like what they do. They have to be fascinated by crime. They have to be interested in it and the unraveling of mysteries. When something unravels, of course, it kind of think of a ball of string or a ball of yarn, and you roll it on the floor. And as the yarn rolls on the floor, the string kind of might stay behind, and the ball gets smaller and smaller and smaller as it rolls. This ball of yarn is unraveling. The same way that a mystery could unravel. As soon as you find clues to the mystery, more things come into focus, and you kind of get an idea of how this mystery happened.
Yeah, that reminds me of a family story. My uncle Roger from many years ago made some mistakes in his life, and his wife divorced him. He lost his job, so his life unraveled. Okay,
oh, no.
It fell apart, and he ended up homeless, and he was a hopeless drunk and stuff like that. But eventually he picked up the pieces and started again, and now he's got a steady job in Atlanta, I believe. I haven't heard from him in many years, but in any case here, we're talking about figuring out mysteries, solving mysteries, unraveling mysteries, and also Sherlock Holmes is fascinated with unraveling these mysteries, but that fascination often goes away. It vanishes once he solves the crime, once he figures out the solution. This does happen, in life when we really anticipate getting something, and then when we get it, well, then we're no longer so excited about that thing. It's like, okay, I have it now. I've reached my goal. Now what? Now you need to figure out something else to get fascinated by.
Yeah, he seems more interested in the process than the actual outcome at the end. Throughout his career, he allows several people who have committed criminal acts, even murders, to get away. Okay, so he solves the crime and then he thinks, well, what happens after? It doesn't really concern me. I'm more interested in the mystery itself than the conclusion. Sometimes this is because he believes the crime was morally justified. Okay, so it's interesting. A lot of the times people see it as black and white. If you commit a crime, you should go to jail. But Holmes has a more kind of nuanced view of this. He kind of doesn't see it as black and white. He says if the crime is morally justified, if the crime was something that, yeah, I can see why you were justified in committing the crime. I understand why you did it. Then he might think that the person who committed the crime can be set free.
That's right. In this particular case, Sherlock Holmes' belief he is justified in letting Mr. Ryder go, and he wants to save a soul. Again, you do that during Christmas time, and he also says, the solution is its own reward, which is kind of like what you were just saying there, Jacob. It's all about the process, figuring out the crime. That's more fun than actually getting the solution. But yeah, the solution is its own reward. I don't really care about what happens after that, and that's one of the main reasons for doing what he does. He just loves the process, and he doesn't really care so much about the result. Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation for today. Here comes our Chinese teacher.
好，请看到第二段的第一个句子 The theme of goodwill is at the core of the story. 意思是故事的核心是善意。 好，请同学看到第二个句子，请看到第二个句子，逗点之后有个 which。那为什么前面还要有个逗点呢？最主要是因为 the Christmas season， 这是一个专有名词圣诞假期、圣诞节。那我们知道，其实圣诞节就是只有一个嘛，我们不需要去做区分，所以在这里的 which 它是非限定修饰。那补充说明，就是圣诞节常常呢，大家都会觉得说这样子的季节里面，在庆祝圣诞节的时候，我们要重视宽恕、博爱和宽容的精神。接下来请看到第三句，第三句 Holmes displays 这一句子，在逗点之前，我们有个 escape justice， 请同学画起来。这句话的意思是免于法律制裁。再来，请看到第三段。第三段呢，请同学特别注意第二个句子，就是 He is fascinated by crime and the unraveling of mysteries。所谓的 unraveling of mysteries， 其实就是mystery 常常就是一些很离奇的案件。那 unraveling 就是解开这些谜团的意思。好，再来，请同学看到第三句。好 ，throughout his career， 那最后面这里 even murderers to get away。好，就是呢，福尔摩斯有时候呢，他不会真的就是非常的坚持，这些犯罪的人都必须要绳之以法。他有时候会让他们呢，就是躲过这些法律的制裁 ，to get away， 那就是没有受到法律的制裁。再来第四句，请同学看 ，Sometimes this is because 这一句逗点之前有一个 morally justify， 这是什么意思呢？其实我们可以说就是其情可悯，在道德上呢是说得过去的。那什么样的情况算是 morally justify 呢？老师给大家一个句子给大家一个例子，比方说像失业的父亲，生活陷入困顿，为了不让小孩继续挨饿而偷面包，这一类的情况大概就会被称为 morally justify， 因为他是出于父爱而去偷窃的嘛，并不是为了自己自私的理由，可以这么说。那接下来我们请同学注意到第五个句子，为什么福尔摩斯他决定这么做呢？那最主要是因为他认为he adds that solution is its own reward， 只要是破案了，破案就本身来说，它其实就是一种最好的回报了。好，以上呢就是我们今天的中文讲解，谢谢大家。
That is it for today, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed our summary of our story. And yeah, if we've already spilled the beans and let you know the result of the story, there are still over 50 other Sherlock Holmes that you can download from the internet and read them yourself. And we wish you the best of luck with that. And Merry Christmas, but we'll be talking about Christmas for the rest of the month here. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Jacob.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.